recording, and let's go to our slide presentation. And you can see here, we will do a little review at the beginning of class Monday on the 12th. And then we're going to shut it down at 11:30 on Monday, and the test will then be available to you for 48 hours. Open book test, but my young Padawans, we don't do just strictly true, false, multiple guess, matching. No. This is history. Well, this is government, but I am an educated historian. Got a master's in history from Oklahoma State. And was that a snarl about OSU? How dare you? Okay, I'm just joking. But really, I'm not. Just remember that. No, I'm just joking. But anyway, my wife's an OU graduate. So I got to root for them. I used to really hope that OU would lose every stinking time. And, but my wife made me have to soften my stance. But anyway, in a history degree, and I realize some of you might not be going to school to get a history degree, but you will have to take history courses unless you take them all concurrently like this. But if you have me, and I know if you have Mr. Brennan from Carl Albert, you will have to write. And so most of this test, I won't say most, maybe half will be writing. Not long writing, short answer. But remember too, it's open book, so no sweat. All right, we're wasting precious lecture time. Here we go, where I am. Civil rights. You remember that civil rights are what the government must do to make sure that all of our equality is protected, because we are all, as US citizens, to be equal under the law. Whereas the civil liberties of the Bill of Rights was something that was a protection against government intrusion. Civil rights is where the government uses their authority to make sure that people are not being discriminated against. It's based on the 14th Amendment. We'll look at that more in depth here in a little bit. And let me just tell you an example of a kind of writing question you'll have on the test. You might have a question that says, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments are known as the Civil War Amendments or Civil Rights Amendments. Explain them and why they are important. Now, I've already been having you do these types of things on the worksheets, so you should be getting used to it, but I will be asking for a little bit more longer, substantial answers on the test. All right. So those three Civil Rights Acts were all passed by 1868, 3 years after the end of the Civil War. And so then for the next 100 years, 1868 till the 1960s, so a good century was we could say it was a century of a struggle for civil rights. And not just for African Americans, but for women, Native Americans, Hispanics, Chinese or Asian Americans. And now, even in today, past the 60s, those with disabilities and those in the LGBTQT, and now a bunch more letters things. I don't know the rest of the letters. I finally got down to 5 LGBTQ, whatever, and they added a bunch more. So, but when we come to this 1860s, as we know from the Civil War, there was already strong sentiments in the northern states to abolish slavery. That went back all the way even before the Revolutionary War. And during that time, in the 1800s, there were 2 political parties that were even formed specifically as anti-slavery parties. And they are the Liberty Party and the Free Soil Party. Now, those types of things there are good kinds of multiple choice questions on the test. Name, circle one of the parties listed below that was an anti-slavery party. And then there was something called the Underground Railroad. Does anybody know what that is, or can tell us a little bit about the Underground Railroad?
Wasn't that when Harriet Tubman was transporting slaves out of plantations, or like, yeah, you know what I mean?
Harriet Tubman and some other people were, transporting illegally, according to the South, illegally transporting runaway slaves to the North. So the Underground Railroad. Very good. Some other things were happening before the Civil War. One of the court cases which you were to answer about, I think you did, the Dred Scott decision, which said that no African American, slave or free, had rights in the United States of America. That was in 1857. Not just the slaves didn't have rights, but even free African Americans didn't have rights. The specific situation about this case was about a slave named Dred Scott, who had been taken to a northern state by his master. And Mr. Scott then argued that because his master had taken him to a free state, he was no longer a slave, and wanted the rights of the slave, of the free people in the North. Well, the Supreme Court said no. Southern slave owners could take their slaves, which was their property, to anywhere in the United States they wished. So this was one of the rumblings before the Civil War, before the Civil Rights Amendments. This was one of the rumblings that was happening. Then, of course, the Civil War took place 1860 to 1865. By the way, fun fact, anybody know where the last known Civil War battle took place? Fort Gibson, Oklahoma. Actually, not battle, but the last group of troops surrendered at Fort Gibson, Oklahoma. The Civil War officially ended in April of 1865, right? Let's see. I think it was General Stan Wadey, a Native American general for the South. Someone do the Google and make sure I'm right on this. June of 1865, he surrendered. But check Fort Gibson, June 1865. See if it's General Watie. While someone's looking at that, look here at this graph. The Civil War was the bloodiest war for America. 620,000 Americans died as two groups of Americans fought each other. Compare that to the next highest, World War II, 405,000. So anybody get that about Stan Wadey and Fort Gibson? All righty, I'll check on it over the weekend. All right, the three Civil War amendments. 13th Amendment outlawed slavery. 14th Amendment reversed that Dred Scott decision. And this is the amendment that has the due process and equal protection clauses. So 13th Amendment outlaws slavery. 14th Amendment guarantees civil rights for all people. 15th Amendment, in theory at the time, said that individual states could not deny the right to vote to anybody based on their race, color, or their previous condition of servitude. Now, those amendments are what's on paper. Was that perfectly followed in reality? No, it was not. The southern states enacted a certain kind of law or laws to kind of get around those amendments. What were those laws called? Anybody remember? Were they called Tim Eagle laws? How about Joe Buzzard laws? Is this ringing a bell to anybody? How about Jim Crow laws? You think it was Jim Crow, Joe Buzzard, or Tim Eagle? You guys ever study the period after the Civil War? Jim Crow laws. The South enacted these laws. They weren't officially called Jim Crow. Jim Crow was a way to talk about the blacks and their culture. But the South enacted these Jim Crow laws, which included things like the Plessy versus Ferguson case in 1896. There was a Louisiana law that African Americans could not ride in a train car if it was a train car designated for whites. There was another train car for blacks. The Supreme Court said that was okay. And so that was the separate but equal case, okay, right? States could provide separate facilities for blacks and whites as long as they were equal Now, do you think the southern states provided facilities for the blacks that were as equal to the whites' facilities? No, they didn't. But as long as they had them, it passed that law's requirement. But that's an example of a Jim Crow law. It's a law that continues to keep the African Americans below white Americans. And so there were other laws that kept African Americans from voting, for keeping the African American vote low in the southern states. There was intimidation by people in the South. And so along with the Civil War amendments and the struggle to get those amendments, make sure those things were followed, there were social organizations that popped up to help secure the rights of African Americans and then eventually other minorities. The NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, they basically used two methods to try to get civil rights applied to African Americans. They would put political pressure on individuals, congressmen, groups, businesses, and they would also use legal court proceedings to get things changed. Women's groups popped up like the Just Government League of Maryland. Women wanted to vote and have other rights. Another popular African American, not specifically African American, but the leadership was primarily African American, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Martin Luther King was a prominent leader. This group, instead of going to court and putting pressure on, putting political pressure, they used nonviolent protest. They did civil disobedience, like think of Rosa Parks, who disobeyed the rule on the Montgomery, Alabama bus, that she had to sit in the back with the colored section, but she refused to do that and she sat in the white section. That was civil disobedience.
Mr. Bings, it's 11:33.
Oh, thank you very much. So I'll go over the rest of these very quickly Monday morning, and then we'll do a quick review. So just like last Friday, thank you for reminding me of the time. Make sure someone has to be the scribe. So get your paper and pen out. One person from Panama and one from Muldrow. Now, I believe, Job, you told me that Casey's has good pizza, right? Yeah, I went in there the other day to get gas and I was surprised. I have like a whole pizza kitchen. So I got kind of excited. I might have to get a pizza there this next week. Any favorites that you would recommend?
Chicken bacon ranch.
No, shut up.
Well, that sounds good.
No. Either the regular cheese pepperoni or their Canadian bacon.
No,
they
he's
are
boring.
really good.
Chicken bacon ranch is so good. And it has like white sauce instead of marinara. I love it.
Oh, yum. What about their like chicken or their pizza breakfast burrito? Is that good? Anybody try that?
It's all right.
Okay, ready? Question number one. Who's the scribes in each room? Who's going to write down the answer and reveal it?
I am.
Aggressively point.
We're about in Muldrow. Okay. All right, so question number one, I'm going to start with chapter 4. Which amendment of the first 10 amendments, which one of those has 5 freedoms in it? Which amendment has 5 freedoms in it? Do, 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 do. Don't reveal it yet. Don't reveal it yet. Do, 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 do. You got a 1 in 10 chance. So on the count of 3, reveal. 3, 2, 1. Okay, go ahead and put yours down. Yes, First Amendment. Very good. 1, 2, 1. Question number 2. Which amendment contains the free exercise clause? Which amendment, and I'll narrow it down, which amendment of the first 10 amendments contains the free exercise clause? Do, 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 boom, boom. All righty, the free exercise clause is found in which amendment? 3, 2, 1. 19th and 6th. No, actually, you didn't have to scratch out your first one. It's in the First Amendment. It is one of the 5 freedoms, freedom of religion. No government shall make a law that prohibits your freedom to exercise any belief system that you want to believe. That reminded me, I found my my koozie that says exercise. I thought you said extra fries. Right? That's a dad thing, isn't it, right? All right, still 1 to 1. So let's go to the next question. What is the provision in the 10, what is the provision in the Bill of Rights that says that someone cannot be tried 2 times for the same case? What is the, I guess we could say, what is the short term for the provision that a person cannot have a trial jury for the same crime twice? Do, 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 do. The theme music should be a hint. So 3, 2, 1. Yes, double jeopardy. Yay. All right, we're going to move on to, we got time for one more chapter 4. All righty. What right did the Supreme Court case Griswold versus Connecticut secure? What right did the Supreme Court case of Griswold versus Connecticut in 1965 secure? Or you might say, or if you want to say what state law it struck down, that would work too. But specifically, a specific right that individuals have. This was one of 3 Supreme Court cases that strengthened that right. Do, 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 and 3, 2, 1. The right. Put that down. Go ahead and put it down. It is the right to privacy, but the case was about contraceptives. So I will give you both a point for that. Did that surprise you guys that there used to be state laws against contraceptives? Okay. Now we'll go to chapter 5. What amendment? What amendment? And it doesn't have to be the first 10, but what amendment guarantees civil rights for all Americans and due process of the law? No fingers on computers. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. This amendment guarantees civil rights for everybody and due process of the law. Do, 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 boom, boom. All right, we're going to reveal on 3, 2, 1. It is the 14th Amendment. Very good. Panama goes ahead by 1. But Muldrow is not sweating it, right? Okay, this next question, I did not cover it today in lecture, but you should have read it in your chapter and dealt with it on the chapter 5 worksheet. So, which Civil Rights Act? Which of the Civil Rights Acts dealt primarily with voting rights for African Americans? It was in chapter 5. You did have to do work on it on your chapter 5 worksheet. But a Civil Rights Act that primarily dealt with securing African Americans' rights to vote. And I'll give you a hint. It begins with the Civil Rights Act of the Civil Rights Act of blank. All right. Dun, 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 dun. All right. 3 and 2 and 1. It is the Civil Rights Act of 60. 64 got rid of segregation in schools and many other things. All right. Next question, very easy. What is the name of Instructor Bings's rabbit? Threw one in on you. This is not in the textbook, of course. 3, 2, 1. Yes, Herbie. All right, I see that it's 11:45, so we got time for a few more questions. Give Muldrow a chance to catch up, maybe. Back to chapter 5. Name 3 other groups that sought civil rights in the 60s and 70s and 80s, besides African Americans. At least 3 other minority groups that were seeking civil rights. Do, 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 boom, boom. All righty, time to reveal on a 3 and a 2 and a 1. Latinos, Asians, and LGBTQ, women, Asians. Yes, very good. All right. It's 6-4. We'll have 2 more questions, which means Panama has to miss them and Muldrow has to get them right to tie at least. I'm going to throw a softball to you. Which civil rights leader made a speech in which he said, "I have a dream"? Well-known civil rights leader, I have a dream that one day Instructor Bings will be instructing young minds with humor and flair and charisma. All right, 3, 2, 1. Yes, very good. And since that well, we'll do the last one and see if Muldrow can at least make it a closer game. Because it's 7-5, which means Panama is going to win. But here we go. In 1848, there was a meeting of 300 delegates at Seneca Falls, New York. And they were meeting about women's rights. What was the name of the document that they came up with for women's rights? It was in the textbook, and it was on the worksheet because I'm getting these questions from the worksheet. But at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848, these delegates came up with, hey, good shot. These delegates came up with a document expressing their demand for women's equal treatment and rights. Do, 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 do. I'll give you a hint. Well, no, it's too late. Ready? 3, 3 and a 2 and a 1. (1964), and what Muldrow had. It was called the Declaration of Sentiments. And they patterned it after the Declaration of Independence, but they included women, of course. So, all right. So Panama is the winner, and I will have since you guys all tied last time, Every week I'll have a little plaque on paper that will hang up behind me. Panama will be the reigning champion. So that'll be your title until next Friday. So have a great weekend. Remember, the song competition starts this afternoon. And listen to some great 80s music. And what I want you to do is vote. There'll be one song versus another song. You vote which song you like better. Have a great weekend. Still here if anybody has questions.